Hi, and welcome to my podcast. I'm Janine Plesh. I created this podcast as a means of self-expression, to share with others some of the insights, wisdom, practices, stories, and people who have inspired me on my journey as a yoga teacher, practitioner, and evolving human being. My vision of the world is one of a conscious world, where all people understand that suffering is optional, and that who we are is abundant, free, and ever-expanding joy. With that said, let's begin. All right, welcome everyone to the show, to this podcast. I'm really excited about this because we're talking self-care, which seems to be the theme of this month, at least for me, but I see it everywhere now. So, and we're here I have a guest today, Coach Emilie Régnière, and we've known each other for a long time, but I am excited to have you on this podcast and to have this conversation with you. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
It would be great just for the listeners if just introduce yourself and let them know who you are.
Awesome. So I'm Emilie Régnière, or Coach M. I am an empowerment and transformational coach, which means that I help people find the power within to live out the way they want to live their life. And I help you going from stuck or gray or confused to enlightened, connected, and happy, in a nutshell.
Yeah, I always find it hard to define even like what I do as a yoga teacher, because there's so many hats that we wear. And but yeah, it's quite interesting, especially like life coaching. I mean, you're influencing people's lives, and I know with as many of the listeners who have been following this podcast kind of beginning, I had done a podcast on self-care and motivation, and but what I like about what I've been seeing from, I've been following you on Facebook and following your stories on Facebook, and they're really inspirational. And what I like that you do is that you bring in this element of self-love into the self-care. But what does self-care mean to you?
That's a great question. And I think I like to relate both self-care and self-love, because I think without one, the other can't really exist. So I always think back to when you care for someone else, because it's often easier to take care of other people first. When you care for someone else, you do it to provide health, to provide well-being, to provide protection and welfare, because there's love there, because there's an interest for you, because there's affection towards the other. It's the same thing when you turn it around for yourself. You take care of yourself because there's a need for love from yourself. There's a need for health and protection and well-being. So I like to connect the both. The deeper you go in one, the deeper you will go in the other as well. So bringing that element of consciousness is really important to me, to bring the both together. So essentially self-care, I see it as really looking out for your well-being, really looking out for health, whatever that means to you. So I like to look at health in a holistic way, as do you, as per the conversations we've had in the past. And so I really think that when you're doing self-care acts, when you're taking care of yourself, then essentially you're taking care of a part of your health or a lot of parts of your health. And that just provides well-being as a whole to yourself.
So I love this. And like, if I think back on how we met, right? So Emilie and I met with through prenatal yoga, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and that was like your first, I don't know if, was it your first experience of yoga? Yeah, it was your first experience of yoga. And so I see that also as a form of self-care, you know, and just taking care of yourself, also taking care of your baby. But how has self-care impacted you on like a personal level? Like, I know you're a mom, and I'm sure there's a lot of moms listening to, and I know in some of your Facebook messages and stories, you've talked about, you know, like your kids and things like that, and also feeling guilty. And so how has self-care influenced you, and like, what does that mean for you personally?
At this time, because I'm a mom of 3, self-care is something that I have to plan around, and I have to really be conscious of how I do it and what it brings to me. And I think that evolves during your lifespan, and it changes depending on who you are and what you're becoming and what you're doing in your environment. But I think for me, self-care is more now about the ritual and the intention of what it is I'm doing to, I like to call it, fill my cup. So fill myself with energy and fill myself with positive emotion and really the breath of life, if I can say it that way. So it's less about the event or the routine of it, and more about the intention behind it and how it's going to make me feel as a result. So with that in mind, it can be small little things one day that have this effect, and then bigger rituals or routines that I need to put in place at other points in time in my life. So as a professional and as a coach, I address this on a one-on-one basis with people, depending on who they are, what they believe in, what situation they're in, and what they're capable of doing to do self-care routines or rituals, right? So it's really, it goes from a philosophy, and then when you bring it into strategy, it needs to be personalized because people's realities are different. So if I take the one example that I keep taking, which is taking a bath, because it's a small thing and it's so popular, but it's been such an image for me, because taking a bath for one person will be a great self-care routine and ritual. Taking a bath for a mom of 3 at 10:30 at night when you're exhausted might not do the trick, right? It might not. And actually painting your nails might be better, or whatever it could be in that moment might be quicker, but to the point, and done with intentionality and consciousness of the act that you're doing might do the trick better.
Yeah. I have this, this thing that, like, again, my self-care intention is to be in my abundance, you know, and so like that, I think for different people will mean different things, you know, right. And to just be connected with abundance and joy and feel like that can go through, like I can take that through the rest of my day. So I build my rituals around that, and my rituals will probably be very different than other people's rituals. But we're working towards the same kind of experience, you know, just being in our joy and our abundance. I feel like my self-care routine or ritual is sometimes I'm a little bit harsh on myself, you know, but that's why, like, this idea of like trying to understand how does self-care and self-love come together? You know, like, how can I be more compassionate with myself? And I know in one of your stories, you talked about like allowing spontaneity, you know, and because sometimes we can't be so rigorous with ourselves. But at the same time, it's important. Like for me, my whole thing is, you know, commit. My kind of like self-care thing is commit to putting myself first at least once a day. But for other people, it might be once a week or, something like, but regular, some kind of regular ritual. But what's the biggest mistake that you see people making in terms of self-care?
I think one of the biggest thing about self-care is forgetting the intention that you set behind it and imposing, like you just described, imposing something on yourself that no longer does the trick. So for me, it's about understanding that your self-care routine or your self-care rituals will need to evolve. It's not even they can evolve, it's they will evolve, because you will evolve, your life will evolve, your reality is going to be different from time to time. So it's learning to adapt and still find that you are putting yourself first in a way. And it could be as little as in a conversation, being able to voice your opinion. That might be representation of self-care. And it could be representation of self-love at the same time. Having this awareness will automatically fill you up with energy, and you won't maybe need to go through a rigorous routine of self-care if you're just aware that I'm taking care of myself, I'm setting boundaries for myself, I'm voicing my opinions, I'm being heard. So I think the biggest mistake is this misconception that there needs to be a heavy routine of you have to go to the gym or else you're not taking care of yourself. That's not true. Maybe today, all I can do is a 15-minute walk and that's good enough. And maybe I have to drag the kids on that walk because, and that's okay. And maybe it's just changing my mindset around it to say, my attitude towards this will be, I'm taking care of myself with my family, and we're going to see, I don't know, beautiful flowers on the way and take the time to smell them and whatever makes you happy in that moment, right? So it's being able to have that adaptation. Otherwise, when you're too rigorous and you don't have compassion, then you're going against self-love, which goes against your self-care. So it's all one big nugget.
Yeah, I guess that's like the holistic approach to it, is that, and that's something that actually I didn't think about before, was this idea of the mental, we often think of self-care as things that we're doing, it's like, okay, I'm eating healthy food and I'm, having a spa day, or like that we actually have to go and do something. And that's I would say something that I hear from a lot of my students, even just with coming to yoga, because they're like, oh, well, like, how do I commit to going to even a yoga class or doing something, adding to my day? And what I hear you saying is that, it's also the mind. It's also learning to set boundaries and speaking your mind, giving yourself self-expression during the day that can be a big factor in contributing to one's self-care and self-love. It's like making space for yourself. It's like, I matter, even my opinions matter, right. In the day. So that's, wow. I just had like an aha moment.
That's a coach win.
Yeah. Cause I mean, for me, I often think just the doing, and probably maybe because I grew up with a lot of like scheduling, it's like going to the activities. Okay, you're doing this for yourself. You're doing this to be more disciplined. You're doing this to be healthier. But there maybe wasn't enough of that. It's like, oh, well, where do I get a choice, to be able to express those choices and those boundaries for ourselves is part of self-care. Oh my gosh, my brain is like,
and just to maybe piggyback on what you just said, I think structure is important. Planning and pulling through on things that you said you do for yourself and showing up for yourself in that way builds self-confidence. So if you're saying, I want to do yoga 3 times a week, and then every week you only show up once or twice, you're going to run into that problem of self-confidence where you don't have confidence in what you say you're going to do. And then that destroys self-confidence. And that's also linked to self-love and then self-care. And so it's
Mhm.
there's that aspect to it. But when you don't allow for flexibility, then you have other thought issues, from the other side that come in and say different things that you say about yourself to yourself, right? So it's really allowing that flexibility while still being on that route to where you want to go. And it's tricky. And the name of the game here is really your thought process and how you view things. And that will guide what you say to yourself and how you talk to yourself, which then is abundance and love and care.
Would you say that, my mind is going in so many directions now. Would you say that part of your work as a coach is to find, to help people find those obstacles that they're kind of putting in their own way? Because I know that this happens so many times. I mean, people make commitments and maybe they overcommit, and like, I know so many people, they say, oh, I was able to do this like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and okay, I'm doing it now, but their life has changed so much and their commitments and their goals don't really align. Like there's some obstacles in the way. Do you think that that's part of, do you help people kind of find what those are?
Absolutely. So when you work with a coach, that's what we're equipped to do. And the way we do it is not necessarily the way I do it. I'll talk about me because all coaches are different, but my approach is to really reflect so that you can see for yourself and make those choices for yourself on what you think is an obstacle or not. And it's also very experience based. So you'll want to reach some goal, let's say, and then we'll explore and we'll think of maybe obstacles that might be in your way and how to go about it, how to go around them or whatever. And then you'll experience it, which is why we see each other more than once, right? You'll experience it, we'll talk about it, and we'll work around that. So it's really experience based. And as you said, it's identifying what comes up or what could come up and how to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that idea of like letting the coaching be like the following the person's experience, not just telling them what to do. Right?
Yeah. And for myself, telling someone what to do is not coaching. It would be consulting. It would be mentorship, maybe even, but definitely if you're a coach, you're in this posture that I walk alongside you so you can see yourself walking. I will never walk in front. I won't walk behind you and push you. That's not my role. If you want someone to push you, there are people that are equipped to do that. I'm here to walk beside you and reflect what's going on so you can make your own decisions about your life, which is it's the part of the work that is empowering.
Yeah, because there's so many things that we don't see. I mean, I've done coaching over my lifetime. And whether it's business coaching or just general life coaching, and there's so many things that are in our blind spots and that we don't see and that are so obvious almost for others to see, and just kind of being guided, not so much into what to do, but just being like, hey, like, what about this? Or, how is this doing? So I have benefited a lot from coaching and just having that second set of eyes.
Yep.
And that is not there to influence my actions so much as just to help me move towards in the direction that I want to go into. So I'm all for that. And you have a masterclass coming up all about this where people can connect with you, right? So tell us about this masterclass.
Yes, so it's a 3-day masterclass that is going to be next week, actually, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So it's going to be Wednesday and Thursday evening for about an hour and a half, depending on the discussions that we'll have. And then on the Friday, we'll have a question and answer based session where I'll be able to, we call it hot seat coaching. So it's in the moment, do a little bit of coaching and reflection with the people. So it's a masterclass, meaning that I bring concepts, but I'm really into workshopping more than really teaching. So I'll bring concepts, I'll bring ideas. I've made a workbook so that people can be guided in their reflections. And then we'll have an exchange on this, which is also always about challenging your ideas and bringing you forward. So yes, that's the masterclass. It's called Unapologetic Self-Love and Care, because there's always this component to when you work on yourself, when you want to give yourself more love and care, there's always a component of being apologetic about it. And so I've called it the contrary of that, so that we can move from that and understand why it's the basis of life to actually have love and care for yourself.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to apologize to be ourselves and to care about ourselves. That's so key.
Yeah.
And essential.
It's the basis. I've said it from the beginning. This is the basis of any self-development, any growth of self. It's to understand how to fall in love with yourself and then grow that love and grow that care. And it's just the basis. And if you can go there, then I feel you can go anywhere after that.
Great. So I'll put a link in the description for where people can sign up. Is there any way that people can reach out to you directly, or if they want coaching or
absolutely
ask you questions?
Yes. So I'll give you my email. You can post it because it's my name and my last name is a little bizarre. So you can you can write it, and you can find me on social media as well. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, so you can write me there directly.
Okay, awesome. Well, this has been, my head is still kind of in that and I'm trying to figure out how I can do a holistic approach to self-care.
Great. I love that.
Well, so thank you so much for being here. Are there any kind of you've already given us so much little nuggets of inspiration. Is there any last words that you'd like to share?
If you want to do self-love right, you just have to remember to have the best interest in yourself, really want to be interested in who you are. And I think that's where you start. When you're awkward with self-love, it's fine to say, I don't know how to do this. And the first direction to go is be interested. Just be interested in, who am I? What do I like? What do I value? What do I want? What are my dreams? And those are basic questions that we don't take the time to answer about ourselves. And when you meet someone, you immediately will go there and have an interest in something about them. So bring that to self, just bring it to you. And that's where you start. So those are my last words.
That's a great place to start for so many people. And I really hope that our listeners will look you up and participate in your masterclass that's coming up. Please check the link in the description to connect with Emilie, Coach M. And I'm sure this topic of self-care will come up over and over again in my podcast, since even yoga is so much a self-care, a mode of self-care, and as well as other things. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope we'll get to converse about this stuff again. I'm sure there's going to be more topics that we can talk about. So I hope you'll come back.
For sure. Thank you for having me. This was great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. I'd love to hear from you. Please share below, Click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos and podcasts just like this one. Until next time, breathe and be well. Namaste.